Hey there, and welcome to Dinar Today. I'm so glad you're here with me because today we're diving into what could be one of the most significant developments we've seen in the Iraqi Dinar and Vietnamese Dong story in quite some time. And I'm not talking about rumors or speculation, I'm talking about real, documented movements involving one of the world's most powerful financial institutions, the World Bank. Now, I know many of you have been on this journey for years. Some of you are new to holding these currencies. And some of you have been here through every twist and turn, every prediction, every disappointment. And I want you to know that I understand the emotional roller coaster this can be. But today's news is different. Today, we're looking at official involvement from a global institution that doesn't move lightly. When the World Bank steps into the picture, it sends ripples through the entire international financial system. So let's break down exactly what's happening, why it matters, and most importantly, what it means for you as a holder of the Iraqi Dinar or Vietnamese Dong. First, let's establish the foundation here. The World Bank isn't just another financial institution, it's one of the pillars of the global economic order. Established in 1944, the World Bank works with governments around the world to reduce poverty, support economic development, and stabilize financial systems. They provide funding, technical expertise, and policy guidance to countries working to strengthen their economies. When the World Bank gets involved with a country's financial infrastructure, it's a signal to the entire world that something significant is underway. It's like a stamp of credibility that international investors, other banks, and financial markets pay close attention to. So when we hear reports that the World Bank has triggered major progress related to both the Iraqi Dinar and the Vietnamese Dong, this isn't something we can brush off as just another prediction or hopeful speculation. This represents coordinated, institutional level movement. And that's exactly the kind of development that currency holders have been waiting to see for years. This is the difference between hoping for change and seeing the machinery of change actually beginning to turn. Now, let's talk about what triggered major progress actually means in practical terms. We're talking about a series of coordinated actions that involve policy alignment, financial infrastructure development, and international recognition processes. The World Bank doesn't just wake up one morning and decide to get involved with a currency. Their involvement typically follows extensive analysis, negotiations with central banks, assessments of economic stability, and strategic planning for how to integrate these currencies more fully into the global financial system. This is a process that involves multiple stakeholders, central banks, government ministries, international financial institutions, and commercial banking networks. For the Iraqi Dinar specifically, this development is absolutely massive. Iraq has been working for years to rebuild its economy after decades of conflict and instability. The country has enormous oil reserves, some of the largest in the world, and tremendous economic potential. But translating that potential into a stronger, more internationally recognized currency has been a slow and complex process. The involvement of the World Bank suggests that we're now entering a new phase of that process. We're seeing the kind of high-level institutional support that can actually move the needle on currency valuation and international acceptance. Think about what Iraq has been working toward. They've been implementing banking reforms, updating their financial infrastructure, working to combat corruption, and trying to create the kind of stable economic environment that international investors look for. These aren't quick fixes, they're long-term structural changes that take years to implement properly. But the fact that the World Bank is now stepping in with active support tells us that Iraq has likely reached certain benchmarks, met certain criteria, and demonstrated the kind of progress that warrants this level of international backing. Now let's shift our focus to the Vietnamese Dong, because this currency deserves just as much attention. Vietnam's economic story over the past few decades has been remarkable. The country has transformed itself from a war-torn nation into one of Southeast Asia's most dynamic economies. Vietnam has become a major manufacturing hub, attracting billions of dollars in foreign direct investment from companies looking for alternatives to China. The country has maintained steady GDP growth, developed its infrastructure, and built increasingly sophisticated financial systems. The Vietnamese Dong has historically been undervalued relative to the country's economic performance. While Vietnam's economy has been growing at impressive rates, often in the 6 to 7% range annually, the currency hasn't fully reflected that growth in international markets. This is where the World Bank's involvement becomes so interesting. By triggering progress on the Dong, the World Bank may be signaling that it's time for the international community to reassess Vietnam's currency in light of the country's actual economic achievements. This could mean increased liquidity, better exchange mechanisms, and broader recognition in global financial markets. What makes this development even more significant is that we are seeing coordinated progress on both currencies simultaneously. This isn't just about Iraq or just about Vietnam, it's about both countries and their currencies receiving attention from the World Bank at the same time. That suggests a broader strategic initiative, possibly related to emerging market currency reforms or developing economic financial integration. When major institutions coordinate efforts across multiple countries, it typically signals a larger policy framework at work. Let me be clear about something important, though. When we talk about the World Bank triggering major progress, we're not talking about an overnight revaluation where you wake up tomorrow morning and the currencies have suddenly jumped to dramatically higher values. That's not how these processes work in the real world of international finance. What we're talking about is the beginning of a structured, phased process that could unfold over weeks, months, or even longer. But here's why that's actually good news. Gradual, properly supported change is far more sustainable than sudden, unsupported jumps in value. Think about it this way. If a currency suddenly doubled or tripled in value without the proper economic infrastructure and international support systems in place, what would happen? You'd likely see volatility, uncertainty, potential reversals, and a lack of confidence from international markets. But when change happens with the backing of institutions like the World Bank, with proper preparation, with coordinated banking systems ready to handle the transition, that's when you get sustainable, lasting change. That's the kind of progress that actually benefits holders in the long term. So what does this mean for you practically as a holder of these currencies? First and foremost, it means validation. If you've been holding dinars or dong for years while friends and family questioned your judgment, this is the kind of news that demonstrates you weren't chasing a fantasy. You were recognizing potential that's now being acknowledged by one of the world's premier financial institutions. The World Bank doesn't waste its time and resources on currencies and economies it doesn't see real potential in. Second, it means preparation time. Right now, before any major changes actually occur, is the time to make sure everything is in order. Do you have your currency stored securely? Are they in verified accounts with legitimate banking institutions? Do you have proper documentation of your holdings? Have you researched the procedures that will likely be required for any exchange or conversion process? These might seem like basic questions, but you'd be surprised how many holders haven't taken these fundamental steps. Now is the time to get organized. Third, it means you need to stay informed through credible channels. And this is crucial in the world of currency speculation and revaluation hopes. There's an enormous amount of misinformation floating around. You'll find YouTube channels making wild predictions, forums full of unfounded rumors, and self-proclaimed experts promising specific dates and rates that have no basis in reality. Your job as a responsible holder is to filter out the noise and focus on verified information from official sources. That means monitoring statements from the Central Bank of Iraq, following announcements from Vietnam State Bank, tracking World Bank publications, and paying attention to credible financial news sources. Let me share something important about how to evaluate information in this space. Ask yourself, is this claim coming from an official institution, or is it someone's interpretation? Is there documentation to support it, or is it based on anonymous sources? Does it align with how international finance actually works, or does it sound too good to be true? These questions will help you separate real developments from hopeful speculation. The World Bank involvement we're discussing today is significant precisely because it comes from a verifiable, authoritative source. Now, let's talk about timing, because I know this is what's on everyone's mind. When will we actually see the results of this World Bank involvement? When will the currencies move? When can holders expect to see benefits? Here's the honest answer. We don't have a specific date. And anyone who tells you they do is not being truthful with you. What we have instead is a process that's now officially in motion. Think of it like a major construction project. The World Bank involvement is like seeing the architects finalize the plans, the permits get approved, and the construction equipment arrive on site. The building isn't finished yet, but you can now see that it's really happening. These large-scale financial transitions involve multiple stages. There are policy implementations that need to happen at the central bank level. There are system upgrades that commercial banks need to complete. There are international agreements that need to be finalized. There are testing phases to ensure everything works properly. All of this takes time, but the fact that it's happening with World Bank support means it's happening in a coordinated, professional manner that's far more likely to succeed. For Iraqi Dinar holders specifically, keep an eye on announcements from the Central Bank of Iraq. They've been making steady progress on banking reforms, and with World Bank backing, we may see acceleration in their timeline for certain initiatives. Watch for news about Iraq's integration with international payment systems, updates to their banking technology, and discussions about currency policy. These are the kinds of indicators that will tell us how close we're getting to actual implementable changes. For Vietnamese dong holders, Vietnam's economic trajectory continues to be impressive. The country is attracting major manufacturing investments as companies diversify their supply chains. Vietnam has been signing trade agreements with countries around the world. The government has been implementing financial reforms to make the dong more convertible and accessible to international investors. The World Bank's involvement could accelerate Vietnam's integration into global financial systems and increase international confidence in the currency. Let's talk about something that doesn't get discussed enough in these conversations: risk management. Even with World Bank involvement, there are no guarantees in currency investing. Political situations can change, economic conditions can shift, global markets can be unpredictable. That's why it's absolutely essential that you only hold amounts you can afford to have tied up for extended periods. If you're counting on a currency revaluation to pay next month's rent or cover emergency expenses, you're putting yourself in a vulnerable position. Responsible currency holding means it's part of a diversified strategy, not your entire financial plan. I also want to address the emotional component of this journey, because it's real and it matters. Many holders have been waiting for years, watching and hoping. There have been disappointments, false alarms, and moments of doubt. Seeing legitimate progress like World Bank involvement can bring up a mix of emotions, excitement, relief, vindication, and also anxiety about what comes next. All of these feelings are completely normal. The key is not to let emotions drive your decisions. Stay grounded, stick to your strategy, and make decisions based on facts and preparation, not fear or euphoria. Here's what I recommend as your action plan moving forward. Number 1, secure and verify your holdings. Make absolutely certain your dinars or dong are in legitimate accounts with proper documentation. Number 2, educate yourself on the exchange process. Different banks may have different procedures, and understanding these in advance will save you stress and confusion later. Number 3, create a strategy for when changes do occur. Will you exchange immediately or wait? Will you exchange everything or hold some back? Having a plan removes the pressure of making major decisions in the moment. Number 4, stay connected to reliable information sources. This means official announcements, credible financial news, and channels that provide documented information rather than speculation. The global implications of this development extend beyond just currency holders. When major economies like Iraq and Vietnam receive World Bank support for their financial systems, it affects international trade relationships, regional economic dynamics, and the broader emerging markets landscape. Iraq's enhanced financial stability could attract more foreign investment into reconstruction and development projects. Vietnam's stronger currency recognition could boost its already impressive manufacturing sector and increase its role in regional trade. There's also a human element to consider. For people living in Iraq and Vietnam, stronger currencies mean improved purchasing power, better access to international goods and services, and increased economic opportunity. When we talk about currency revaluation or recognition, we're not just talking about exchange rates on paper, we're talking about real impacts on real people's lives. The World Bank's involvement suggests they see potential for genuine economic improvement in these countries, which benefits everyone, not just currency holders. Let me share why institutional involvement matters so much more than rumors or predictions. The World Bank has a reputation to protect, they have stakeholders to answer to. They have professional standards and accountability mechanisms. They don't make moves based on speculation or hope. They make moves based on data, analysis, and strategic objectives. When an institution like this triggers progress on currencies, they've done their homework. They've assessed the risks. They've evaluated the economic fundamentals. They've determined that involvement is warranted based on real conditions, not wishful thinking. This is also a reminder of why patience has been such a critical virtue for currency holders. The people who will benefit most from any progress are those who held on through the quiet periods, who didn't panic sell during moments of doubt, who maintained their strategy even when there wasn't exciting news to report. Investing, whether in currencies, stocks, real estate, or anything else rewards patience and discipline far more often than it rewards impulsiveness and emotional reactions. As we move forward from this development, remember that information is power. The more you understand about how international finance works, how central banks operate, how currency mechanisms function, the better equipped you'll be to navigate whatever comes next. This isn't about having a PhD in economics, it's about understanding the basics well enough to make informed decisions and recognize credible information when you see it. One more thing I want to emphasize. Community matters, but be selective about which communities you engage with. There are forums and groups where holders support each other, share verified information, and maintain realistic perspectives. There are also spaces filled with wild speculation, conspiracy theories, and people selling courses or services based on unrealistic promises. Surround yourself with the former, not the latter. A good community helps you stay grounded, informed, and patient. The World Bank's involvement represents a turning point, but it's the beginning of a new chapter, not the end of the story. There will still be developments to watch, announcements to track, and patience required. But this is the kind of development that changes the conversation from if to how and when. That's significant progress, and it's worth recognizing as such. As I wrap up today's update, I want to leave you with this thought. You're part of a unique moment in financial history. Watching emerging market currencies potentially gain recognition and value with support from global institutions is something most people never get to experience or participate in. Whatever happens next, you've positioned yourself to potentially benefit from major economic transitions in two countries with enormous potential. That took foresight, courage, and patience. Stay informed, stay prepared, and stay patient. The World Bank's involvement is real, it's significant, and it represents genuine progress. What happens next will unfold in its own time, but the foundation is being built, and that's what matters most right now. Thank you so much for joining me on Dinar today. If you found this information valuable, please subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. Share this video with fellow Dinar and Dong holders who deserve to know about this important development. And remember, knowledge, preparation, and patience are your greatest assets in this journey. I'll be here tracking every development and bringing you the most credible, well-researched information I can provide. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep believing in the potential you saw in these currencies. This is Dinar today, and I'll see you in the next update.